Good morning, Chargers. What we are going to do today is we are going to do a little review based on graphs and unit rate. And now that we really have an understanding of what it means for something to be proportional, this should be very, very easy. So, first things first, let's look at our first graph. It says money earned from babysitting up here at the top, and my x-axis, I'm going to write x, is time spent babysitting, and my y-axis is the amount of money I earned. Let's see what our first question is. Describe the relationship depicted by the graph. I know this seems like an easy question, and that's because it is. There's a very specific way I want you to answer this question. You should answer as, the graph depicted shows a proportional relationship with the time spent babysitting and the amount of money earned. That's it. All I said was the graph depicted a proportional relationship, which we know because it starts at 0, 0. It's a straight line. And then I really just named my units that are in the relationship together. Let's see here. What is the unit rate represented by the graph? So when I look for unit rate, I know that that means amount per one. And particularly in a graph, I'm looking for where x is 1. So x is 1 right up here. X is 1 right here. So let's see. 1. So it says I have $10 for every 1 hour. I'm going to write that down. $10 for every 1 hour, which could also be read as $10 per hour. $10 per hour. That would be my unit rate. You're going to find that in this lesson, the use of units like hours and amount earned, which means money, that's going to be very important for your success. So if you do not use your units today, you will not get credit for anything that you do. Let's move on to our next example, our next question, I mean. What does the point 4, 40 represent? Let's see. I find my x, 4, I go up to 40. And just for clarification, I'm going to draw these lines so that I know exactly where my point is coming from and that I'm at the right point. So what this point means is that for every 4 hours I spend babysitting, I make $40. And of course that makes sense because I found with my unit rate that I would always have 10 times more the amount of money than hours I worked. So if I have 4 and I multiply it by 10 because I have 10 times more, I will get $40. Let's try another one. If I said, what does the point 6, 60 represent? You would see that when you spend 6 hours babysitting, you will make $60. Again, that makes sense because our dollars will always be 10 times more than our hours spent babysitting. Okay, I think we have this one. Let's move on. Our next example shows the amount of jam jarred. So on our x-axis down here, we have the days we spent jarring, and on our y-axis, we have the jam made in liters. So let's put y up here. Very good. Let's see what our questions are. I have an idea they'll be very similar. 1, describe the relationship the graph depicts. Again, a very similar question to what we just had. I want an answer like this. The graph depicts a proportional relationship between the number of days and the amount of jam made in liters. That's exactly what I want. Again, we know this is proportional because it starts at 0, 0. It is a straight line. And then I compared my units of days and jam made in order to describe my relationship of my graph. What is the unit rate? Here, we are doing the same thing. Unit rate means amount per 1. And if I'm looking for the amount per 1, I also could look for where x is 1. Where is x 1? I see it right here, but it's not a very clear point. So I'm going to pick a very, very clear point, like this one right here. And just like I did on my last graph, I'm going to draw lines to my x and my y to make sure that I have the right point. Okay, let's find another clear point. Right here. And one more. Very good. This is going to ensure that I'm reading my graph correctly and I will not make silly mistakes, which we have done in the past. So what is my unit rate? Well, based on this, it says I have 3 jams to every 2 days. How could I get my days from 2 to 1? If I want that to read amount per 1, what would I possibly do? I could divide by 2 on both sides. So 2 divided by 2 will leave 1 day. And 3 divided by 2 is going to leave 1 1/2 days. 1 1/2 jam. 1 1/2 liters of jam. So that would be my unit rate. I could put 1 1/2 jams per day. Very good. What does the point 2, 3 represent on the graph? Again, this is very similar to what we did on the last page, and we've actually already worked with this point. So I look for 2, 3. What I'm going to find is that in 2 days, I can make 3 liters of jam. Let's try the next one. If I wanted to know more information about the point 4, 6, what does that point mean or represent on the graph? It means that in 4 days, I can make 6 liters of jam. And why don't you try this one? What about the point 6, 9? What does that point represent on the graph? It means for every 6 days I have, I will actually make 9 liters of jam. Because this 6 is my x and 9 is my y. So I'm just reading the units based on that. Beautiful. Just one more question. What point represents the unit rate? Again, we know unit rate is amount per 1, and with unit rate, we know that it is always where x is 1. So I already have x is 1 here, and my y is kind of iffy, but because I found my unit rate here with number 2, and x has to be 1, my point will be 1, 1.5, or 1 1/2. So whenever I'm looking for my unit rate on a graph, it will be 1, unit rate. And that should again be a review. So I think we're ready to go. Close your laptop, raise your hand, let's start practice.